I was sitting in the university library that Tuesday evening, completely buried under a mountain of calculus problems that made absolutely no sense to me. You know that feeling when numbers start dancing on the page and your brain just refuses to cooperate? Yeah, that was me. I had been staring at the same equation for probably 20 minutes when she walked up to my table. We'd been study partners for about 6 weeks at that point. Just casual acquaintances, really. We'd meet twice a week, help each other with homework, grab coffee sometimes. Nothing unusual. But that evening, something was different about her. I could tell the moment she approached. Her hands were shaking slightly and she kept looking around the library like she was afraid someone might be watching us. "Hey," she said quietly, sliding into the chair across from me. "Can we talk for a minute?" I closed my textbook, relieved for any excuse to take a break from those impossible equations. "Sure, what's up?" She leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." My stomach did a little flip. Was she about to confess feelings for me? Was there some drama I didn't know about? My mind raced through possibilities, none of them matching the nervous energy radiating from her. "Okay," I said slowly. "I'm listening." She bit her lip, her fingers drumming on the table. "Do you think I'm a normal person? Like, do I seem stable to you?" That caught me completely off guard. "What? Of course you're normal. Why would you even ask that?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then put it face down on the table without showing me. "I want to show you something. Something I've never shown anyone before. But I need to know if you can keep an open mind." "Sure," I said, though I'll admit I was getting a bit concerned. "What is it?" "Not here." She glanced around again. "Can you come to my apartment this weekend?" "Saturday evening?" Now I was really curious, and maybe a tiny bit worried. We weren't that close. Why was she trusting me with whatever this secret was? "Is everything okay?" I asked. "You're kind of freaking me out here." She managed a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine. I've been carrying something alone for a really long time, and I think I need to tell someone." "You seem like someone who wouldn't immediately think I'm crazy." "I promise I won't think you're crazy," I said. Though I had no idea what I was promising, she nodded, wrote her address on a scrap of paper and slid it across to me. "Saturday, 7 o'clock. And please, don't mention this to anyone else." Before I could ask any more questions, she grabbed her bag and left, leaving me sitting there with a crumpled piece of paper and a head full of questions. The next 3 days were torture. I couldn't stop thinking about it. What could she possibly want to show me? My mind went through every scenario. Maybe she was in some kind of trouble. Maybe she had a medical condition she was embarrassed about. Maybe she was part of some secret organization. Okay, that last one was probably too much TV talking, but you get the idea. I asked around carefully, trying not to be obvious. Our mutual friends said she seemed fine. A bit quiet lately maybe, but nothing alarming. One guy mentioned she'd been spending a lot of time alone in her apartment, but that wasn't exactly unusual for college students during exam season. By Friday night, I'd almost convinced myself not to go. What if this was some elaborate prank? What if she really was unstable and I was walking into something dangerous? But then I remembered the look in her eyes. That wasn't the look of someone playing games. That was genuine fear mixed with something else. Hope, maybe? Saturday evening arrived faster than I expected. I stood outside her apartment building at 6:55, debating whether to go in. The building was old, one of those converted houses near campus that had been chopped up into student apartments. Her unit was on the second floor. I climbed the creaky stairs and found myself standing in front of her door. I could hear soft music playing inside. I raised my hand to knock, then hesitated. This was my last chance to turn around and pretend this never happened. But curiosity won. It always does with me. I knocked. The music stopped immediately. I heard footsteps, then silence. She was probably looking through the peephole, making sure it was really me. The deadbolt clicked, then the handle turned. She opened the door just wide enough to see me, and I was struck by her expression. She looked terrified and excited at the same time, if that's even possible, like someone about to jump off a diving board for the first time. "You came," she said softly. I said I would. She didn't move to let me in right away. Instead, she studied my face like she was trying to read my mind. "Last chance to back out," she whispered. "Once you see this, you can't unsee it." and I'm going to ask you to keep it secret no matter what you think about it." My heart was pounding now. "You're making this sound really ominous." "I don't mean to. It's not dangerous or illegal or anything like that. It's just personal, really personal, and strange." "Okay," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "I'm ready." She took a deep breath, nodded more to herself than to me, and stepped back to open the door fully. What I saw made me freeze in the doorway. I literally couldn't move for a good 5 seconds. My brain was trying to process what my eyes were seeing, and it just couldn't compute. Her entire apartment had been transformed into something that looked like an art gallery, but not just any art gallery. Every single wall was covered with paintings, sketches, and drawings. The coffee table was buried under sketchbooks. The kitchen counter had sculptures made from clay and wire. There were canvases stacked against the furniture, leaning in piles 3 and 4 deep. Holy... I stepped inside slowly, my mouth hanging open. "Did you do all of this?" She closed the door behind me and locked it. "Every single piece. Over the last 6 years." I moved further into the room, turning in circles to take it all in. The artwork was incredible. Not just good for an amateur, but genuinely stunning. Most of it was portraits. Faces of people rendered in such detail that they looked like they might start breathing at any moment. "Why didn't you tell me you were an artist?" I asked, still trying to wrap my head around the sheer volume of work surrounding me. "Because I'm not," she said quietly. "I mean, I am, but I'm not supposed to be." I turned to look at her. "What does that mean?" She sat down on the edge of her couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "My family is very traditional, very strict about what's acceptable and what isn't. My father is a doctor. My mother is a lawyer. My older brother is an engineer. I'm supposed to be studying business so I can help run the family company someday. But you want to be an artist. It doesn't matter what I want. If they knew about this," she gestured at the walls, "they would disown me. I'm not exaggerating. They've told me my whole life that art is frivolous, a waste of time, something only irresponsible people pursue." I walked over to a large portrait hanging near the window. It showed an elderly man with deep wrinkles and kind eyes, holding what looked like a small bird. "This is beautiful. They're all beautiful." "Thank you," she whispered. "But that's not why I asked you here." I turned back to her. "Then why?" She stood up and went to a drawer, pulling out a thick leather journal. She held it against her chest for a moment like she was gathering courage, then handed it to me. "Open it." The journal was heavy, stuffed with loose papers and photographs. I opened to a random page and found a detailed sketch of a young woman with curly hair and a bright smile. Next to the drawing were notes. "Lots of notes. Subject 47, I read aloud. Female, approximately 25-30 years old. Wearing a green jacket with a coffee stain on the left sleeve. Small scar above right eyebrow. Always carrying a purple bag with buttons attached." I looked up at her, confused. "What is this?" "Keep reading." I flipped through more pages. Every single one had a portrait and detailed notes. Different people, different ages. Men, women, children, elderly folks. Each one documented like a police file. "I don't understand," I said. "Who are these people?" She took a shaky breath. "I've never met any of them. Not in real life." "Then how did you paint them?" "That's the thing I need to tell you. The thing that makes me sound completely insane." She paused, her eyes meeting mine. "I see them in my dreams," I blinked. "Your dreams?" "Yes. Ever since I was 12 years old, I've been having these incredibly vivid dreams about people I've never met. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. You know how dreams are. But these were different. They weren't fuzzy or strange. They were clear. Every detail, every feature. I could see the texture of their clothes, the exact shade of their eyes." I sat down slowly, still holding the journal. "So you started painting them?" "Not at first. I tried to ignore it for years. But the dreams kept coming, and the faces stayed with me even after I woke up. When I was 16, I finally started sketching them just to get them out of my head. And then," she trailed off, "and then what? And then I saw one of them. In real life, my skin prickled." "What do you mean you saw one?" She walked to a canvas leaning against the bookshelf and turned it around. It showed a middle-aged woman with short black hair and glasses wearing a red sweater. "This is subject 23. I painted her 4 years ago based on a dream I had. Last year I was at the grocery store on campus and she walked right past me. Same face, same glasses, same everything, That's probably just a coincidence, I said, though my voice didn't sound convincing even to me. She pulled out 3 more paintings. This man. I dreamed about him 2 years ago. Saw him at the bus stop last March, this teenager. Dreamed about her 18 months ago. She works at the coffee shop on 5th Street. And this guy? I painted him 3 years ago. He's a professor in the engineering building. I stared at the paintings, then at her, then back at the paintings. You're saying you dreamed about these people before you ever met them? I'm saying I dreamed about them and then later I randomly encountered them in real life. Exactly as I saw them in my dreams, down to the smallest details. I stood up and walked to the portrait I'd been admiring earlier. The elderly man with the bird. What about this one? She came to stand beside me. Subject 61, I painted him 2 weeks ago. I haven't met him yet. If the pattern holds, I will. I don't know when or where, but somewhere in this city that exact man exists. I looked at her carefully. She didn't seem crazy. Her eyes were clear, her voice steady. She was scared, yes, but not delusional. I picked up the journal again and started flipping through it more carefully. Each page was dated. Some entries were from years ago, others from just weeks prior. The details were incredible. She hadn't just sketched faces. She'd documented everything. The clothes they wore, the expressions on their faces, even small things like jewelry, watches, or the way they carried themselves. I struggled to find the right words. This is either the most amazing thing I've ever heard or I'm making it all up, she finished for me. Or I'm losing my mind. Believe me, I've considered both possibilities about 1,000,000 times. I stopped at a page that showed a man in his 30s with a distinctive scar running down his left cheek. Something about his face seemed familiar. Really familiar. I stared at it for a long moment, my brain working overtime to place where I'd seen him before. Then it hit me like a truck. Wait, I said, my voice coming out higher than normal. Wait. She noticed the change in my expression immediately. What is it? I held up the journal, pointing at the portrait. This man. When did you paint this? She leaned over to look. That's subject 52. I painted him about 8 months ago. Why? My hands were shaking now. Actually shaking. This is my neighbor. The guy who lives in the apartment next to mine, Mr. Chen. The color drained from her face. What? This is definitely him. That scar on his face? He got it in a car accident when he was younger. He told me about it once when we were both getting our mail. And see this? I pointed to a small detail in the painting. A silver watch on his wrist. He wears that exact watch. Every single day. She sat down heavily on the couch like her legs had just given out. You're absolutely sure? 100%. I see this man almost every day. I helped him carry groceries up the stairs just last week. I looked at her, then back at the painting. How is this possible? How could you dream about my neighbor 8 months ago when you've never even been to my building? She put her face in her hands. For a moment I thought she might be crying, but when she looked up, her eyes were dry, just terrified. Do you believe me now? I wanted to say no. I wanted to find some logical explanation. Maybe she'd seen him somewhere and forgotten about it. Maybe it was just an incredible coincidence. But I was looking at proof right in front of me. She'd captured every detail perfectly. The exact shape of his nose. The way his hair was graying at the temples. Even the expression on his face, this kind of serious but gentle look he always had. I don't know what to believe, I said honestly. But I can't deny what I'm seeing. She nodded slowly. That's fair. That's more than fair, actually. Most people would have run out of here by now thinking I was stalking people or something. I sat down on the couch next to her, still holding the journal. How long have you known? That the dreams were real, I mean? About 6 months. That's when I saw the first person in real life. The woman I mentioned from the grocery store. I thought I was going to pass out right there in the produce section. She walked right past me and I just stood there frozen, holding a bag of apples, staring at her like an idiot. What did you do? I followed her. She said it quietly, almost ashamed. Not in a creepy way, I swear. I just needed to know if it was really her. If my mind was playing tricks on me. So I kept my distance and watched her shop. And everything matched. Everything. The way she moved, the way she talked to the cashier, even the items she bought. It was like watching one of my dreams play out in real life. That must have been terrifying, you have no idea. I went home that day and I couldn't sleep for 2 nights straight. I kept thinking I was having some kind of breakdown. That stress from school had finally pushed me over the edge. She pulled a blanket around her shoulders like she was cold. But then it happened again. And again. Each time I'd see someone I'd painted months or even years before. Just random encounters. On the street, in shops, at the library. I flipped through more pages of the journal. Have you tried to talk to any of them? She shook her head vigorously. No, never. I'm too scared. Scared of what? I don't know exactly. What if they know somehow? What if me approaching them changes something? What if... She paused, choosing her words carefully. What if there's a reason I'm dreaming about these specific people and I'm not supposed to interfere? That sent a chill down my spine. Do you think there's a pattern? Something that connects them all? I've been trying to figure that out for months. I've looked for common features, ages, locations. But there's nothing obvious. They're all different. Different backgrounds, different ages, different everything. The only thing they have in common is that I dreamed about them before meeting them. I stood up and walked around the apartment again, looking at all the faces on the walls with new eyes. Each one was a real person out there somewhere. A person she'd seen in her dreams before ever encountering them in reality. This is insane, I muttered. This is completely insane. Tell me about it. I've been living with this alone for half a year. Do you know how hard it is to act normal when you're questioning your own sanity every single day? I stopped in front of a cluster of paintings near her desk. 3 portraits hung together. 2 children and 1 adult. Who are these? She came over to stand beside me. I don't know yet. I haven't met them. I painted them all within the last month. Do you dream about them often? Not the same people repeatedly, if that's what you mean. Each dream is different. Different people, different settings. But they're always so clear, so detailed. I wake up and I can remember every single thing about their faces. I noticed something else then. On her desk, partially covered by a stack of papers, was another painting. This one looked newer than the others. The paint still had that fresh sheen to it. I moved the papers aside to see it better, and my heart nearly stopped. It was me. I was standing in some room I didn't recognize, surrounded by papers scattered all over a desk, and the expression on my painted face, pure shock. Like I'd just seen something that turned my entire world upside down. My throat went dry. When did you paint this? She bit her lip, looking guilty. Last night. I was going to tell you, I just didn't know how. You dreamed about me? Last night? Yes, you were in some office or study and you were holding something. A photograph, I think. And you looked... She gestured at the painting. Like that. I couldn't stop staring at my own painted face. The detail was perfect. She'd even captured the small scar on my eyebrow from a childhood accident. What else was in the dream? What was I doing? I don't know. Dreams don't come with context. I just see moments, snapshots. You were standing there holding this photograph and you looked shocked. That's all I saw. And you have no idea what the photograph was? No, I tried to see it, but dreams don't work that way. I can only paint what I clearly remember, and I couldn't see what was in your hand. I sat back down, feeling dizzy. This was too much. It was one thing to hear about her dreams and see evidence with other people. It was entirely different to see myself in one of her paintings, especially showing me in some future moment I hadn't experienced yet. So what does this mean? I asked. Am I going to see something shocking? Something in a photograph? She sat down next to me. I don't know, maybe, or maybe it means nothing. Maybe the dreams don't always show the future. Maybe sometimes they're just dreams. But we both knew that wasn't true. Not anymore. Not with Mr. Chen's portrait sitting in that journal, painted months before I'd ever mentioned him. I need to ask you something, I said slowly, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Do you think you're seeing the future? Like actual future events? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I think I might be seeing something. I don't know if it's the future exactly, but I'm seeing real people before I meet them. That's not normal. That's not how the world is supposed to work. No, I agreed. It's definitely not. We sat there in silence for a while, surrounded by dozens of painted faces staring at us from every wall. Each one a mystery, each one a person living their life somewhere in the city, completely unaware that someone had dreamed about them and captured their likeness perfectly. Why did you decide to tell me? I finally asked. Why now after keeping this secret for so long? She looked at me with tired eyes, like someone who'd been carrying a heavy weight for far too long. Because I'm scared. And because you're the kind of person who solves problems instead of running from them. I've watched you in class. When something doesn't make sense, you don't just give up. You dig deeper. You ask questions. I thought maybe you could help me figure out what's happening to me. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to run out of that apartment and never look back. But another part of me, the part she'd correctly identified, was already wondering how we could approach this logically. Okay, I heard myself saying. Let's treat this like a research project. We need data, evidence, a system. Her eyes lit up for the first time that evening. You're not leaving? I'm too curious to leave. Plus, you painted me holding a photograph looking shocked. So apparently I'm involved in this whether I like it or not. She actually laughed at that. A small nervous laugh, but genuine. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me. Over the next week, I couldn't focus on anything else. My calculus homework sat untouched. I barely paid attention in lectures. All I could think about was her apartment full of painted strangers and the impossible truth they represented. I started doing research. Real research. I spent hours in the library and online, looking up cases of precognitive dreams, documented instances of people knowing things they shouldn't know. There were tons of stories out there, but most of them were vague or couldn't be verified. People claiming they predicted disasters or saw events before they happened, but with no real proof. What made her situation different was the specificity. She wasn't predicting vague events. She was seeing specific people in incredible detail, and then encountering those exact same people later. That was measurable. That was something we could actually investigate. I created a spreadsheet on my laptop. I went through her journal and cataloged every single portrait. Date painted. Physical description. Clothing details. Any unique features. Whether she'd met them yet or not. By the time I finished, I had documented 73 different people. When I showed her what I'd done, she just stared at the screen. You really are taking this seriously. If we're going to figure this out, we need to be systematic about it. Now I have a proposal, but you're not going to like it. She crossed her arms. What kind of proposal? I want to try to find some of these people. The ones you've already met. I want to verify that they're real, that the details match, and see if there's any pattern we're missing. She immediately shook her head. No, absolutely not. I told you I don't want to seek them out intentionally. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? I don't know, and that's exactly why I don't want to do it. What if approaching them causes something bad to happen? What if I'm not supposed to interact with them? I pulled up the spreadsheet again. Look, you've already encountered 6 of them randomly, right? And nothing bad happened. You just saw them living their normal lives. I'm not suggesting we talk to them or interfere. I just want to confirm they exist and that the details are accurate. That's all? She chewed on her thumbnail, thinking. Just observe? Nothing more? Just observe. We'll be careful. Discreet. We'll treat it like we're nature documentaries watching animals in the wild. That made her smile a little. That's a weird comparison. But accurate. Please, let me do this. You don't even have to come with me if you don't want to. Just give me the information and I'll verify it. She thought about it for a long time. I could see the internal struggle on her face. Finally, she sighed. 3 people. You can investigate 3 of them. But if anything weird happens, we stop immediately. Deal? Deal. She pulled out her journal and flipped to specific pages. Okay, subject 23, the woman from the grocery store. She shops there every Thursday around 6 in the evening. Subject 41, the professor. He teaches in the engineering building, room 304, on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And subject 28, the teenager who works at the coffee shop. She's usually there on weekends. I wrote down all the information. Got it, I'll start this week. Be careful, she said quietly. I know this sounds paranoid, but I have a really bad feeling about actively searching for them. It'll be fine. I promise. Looking back now, I should have listened to her instincts. That Thursday, I went to the grocery store on campus at 6 in the evening. I felt ridiculous lurking near the produce section with a basket containing a single apple, pretending to shop while actually watching for a middle-aged woman with short black hair and glasses. At 6:17, she walked in. I recognized her immediately from the painting. Same glasses, same hair, same red sweater, or at least a very similar one. My heart started racing. Seeing the painting was one thing. Seeing the actual person was something else entirely. I followed her at a distance as she shopped, being careful not to be obvious. She moved through the store efficiently, grabbing items with the confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times before. Milk, bread, vegetables, some pasta. Nothing unusual, but then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. On her left hand, she wore a silver ring with a small blue stone. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I'd taken of her portrait. I zoomed in on the hand in the painting. There it was. The exact same ring. Same finger. Same everything. She'd painted that ring 8 months before ever seeing this woman. I quickly paid for my apple and left before she could notice me staring. Outside, I sat on a bench and tried to catch my breath. It was real. All of it was real. The next Tuesday, I went to the engineering building, room 304. I slipped in quietly just as class was starting and sat in the back row. The professor walked in, and again I felt that shock of recognition. He looked exactly like the painting. Exactly. Dark hair graying at the temples. Wire-rimmed glasses. Even the way he carried himself with slightly slumped shoulders matched perfectly. But what really got me was a small detail. In the painting, he had a coffee stain on his tie. Just a small brown spot near the bottom. I thought maybe she'd just added that for realism or something. Halfway through the lecture, the professor reached for his coffee mug on the desk. As he brought it to his lips, his hand shook slightly, and a few drops splashed onto his tie. The exact same spot as in the painting. I sat there frozen, watching as he dabbed at the stain with a tissue, muttering something about needing to be more careful. That couldn't be a coincidence. It just couldn't. On Saturday, I went to the coffee shop on 5th Street. The teenage girl was there exactly as described. Curly brown hair pulled into a ponytail. A small nose ring. A name tag that said Riley. I ordered a coffee and sat at a corner table pretending to study while actually watching her work. She was good at her job, friendly with customers, efficient with orders. Just a normal teenager working a weekend shift. But then something happened that made everything feel darker. Another customer came in, a man in his 40s wearing a business suit. He ordered a coffee, and while he was waiting, he struck up a conversation with Riley. It seemed friendly at first, casual. But I noticed Riley's body language change. She became uncomfortable, taking small steps backward, her smile becoming forced. The man didn't seem to notice or care. He kept talking, leaning on the counter, taking up space. Finally, Riley's manager came over and the man backed off, taking his coffee and leaving. I watched Riley's hands shake as she made the next order. When I got back to my apartment, I called her immediately. "We need to talk now." She came over within an hour. I showed her my notes, the photos I'd taken discreetly of each person, the details that matched her paintings perfectly. "They're all real," I said. "Every single detail you painted. The ring, the coffee stain, everything. It's all accurate." She sat down heavily on my couch. I knew it. I mean, I already knew it, but having it confirmed like this, there's something else, I said. Something I noticed with all three of them. What? They all seemed to be going through something. The woman at the grocery store. I heard her on the phone talking about a job interview she was nervous about. The professor, he mentioned to his class that he's working on some important research that's been stressing him out. And the girl at the coffee shop, she had this uncomfortable interaction with a customer that clearly bothered her. She frowned.
"What are you saying?"
"I'm saying maybe you don't just dream about random people. Maybe you dream about people who are at some kind of crossroads or important moment in their lives." Her face went pale. "Oh no, what?" She pulled out her phone and opened her photos. She showed me a picture of a new painting she'd done just 2 nights before. It showed a young man standing on what looked like a bridge, staring down at water below. "I had this dream Wednesday night," she said, her voice shaking. "It was so vivid, so sad. And when I woke up, I had to paint it immediately." I looked at the painting more closely. The young man's expression was one of complete despair. And something about his posture, the way he was gripping the bridge railing. "You think he's going to hurt himself?" I said quietly. "I don't know. Maybe. But if the pattern holds, if I'm really seeing real people at important moments in their lives, then somewhere in this city, there's a man who looks exactly like this, and he might be in trouble."